There is a frequent misunderstanding, if I may say it in this way, that social equality is captured in many cases when I go to presentations or when presentations are made and people react, yes, this is beautiful normative concept. And of course, we are for it. We are for empowerment, cohesion, inclusion, all these things. And social equality is, of course, something we all have in mind. But if you look at the concrete issue behind it, it is quite difficult that we faded out this aspect of, no, it is not as easy as such. There are people and there are structures misbehaving because there are certain structures we have to change. It is not about social equality, just go to your local politician or national politician or to the World Bank, like Bono said, and we'll do something good. We strive now for social equality. It is not about, yes, there is money and we'll spend it on social equality. But it is about developing a concept that we work through these conflicts. This, of course, means to some extent, yes, we have to get every actor on board. We have to look at NGOs, civil society organizations, business organizations, statutory organizations, individuals, academia, get them on board, but don't say this is a process where we simply plead for the good. The crisis, I think, is something hugely important that we would have now actually an opportunity to disentangle the mechanisms actually that led to it. And there are different discussions on changing the economic framework. Personally, I think the question of property has to be put centrally on the agenda again. Now you may say, okay, go back, we have had state property and whatsoever, we have had communism, we don't want this. This is part of the discussion, but it's only part of the discussion. Cooperatives, consumer cooperatives, production cooperatives are hugely important there. Controlling banks is the one thing. It's actually something interesting that the major sector, to the best of my knowledge, that maintains co-op character is the banking sector. In Ireland, you have the credit unions. In many countries, I think you have at least similar co-ops. Making it possible, and there you see the importance, as well, to one thing is to get money for consumption, actual consumption, I need to buy this and that, but as well to set up business. It's a kind of collective effort of dealing with money and dealing with social situations. This is another form of property. You have a huge amount of public property still in terms of public parks, in terms of public housing, in terms of libraries, public libraries. And I think this is something where we should maintain as well, especially facing this crisis, this idea, this is a right. Wendy mentioned I'm working in different areas, different countries. In Finland, the public libraries play a huge role. And some people, they have problems now and want to close some down. This is something you cannot do. It's not about the money, but it's about the attitude of certain objective structures of property, maintaining this to make it available for the people who own it. We have this in education as well. Students pay now for huge fees in any country, have at least a discussion about paying for education, which means as well that you actually don't get education, but you get skills training. If you are not happy, get another degree after 3 years.
I'm wondering a little bit what you want to achieve with the quality. Is it devising a kind of alternative ideology to neoliberalism by politicians, electoral campaigns, or is it intended as something like quality of life project, something that can be, that is going to be translated into indicators for research on, and what is the idea behind it?
Well, the idea originally was in 1997, but don't trust me if I mention any figure, it's usually wrong. There was the Amsterdam Declaration under the Dutch presidency of the European Union. People coming together, academics gathering, and saying, well, Europe, where it goes now, is a cul-de-sac. It doesn't go into a direction that is sustainable in political terms. We have had before the experience of Delors, where the Euroscepticism and all this, people had been running away, and there was a state being built up, a European state, the EU, and it was all geared towards economics. Now, the one thing was, of course, yes, we have to look more for social policy. But at the same time, the approach was actually, it's not just to look for strengthening social policy, but to look at in which way is actually the then pattern of economic policies in itself social policy. Because of course it makes a difference what kind of economic policy I follow. So it had been from there developing a new framework, going to politicians. This the declaration was hugely received by other academics, meaning it was a kind of snowball effect. It had been taken by the by the European Commission on the agenda. Misinterpreted, but at least something. They recognized it. So in this sense, yes, it is there to go to policymakers. But at the same time, it was a kind of starting point that we actually, I mentioned the conditional factors, had been developing then indicators in a project, in a research project, meaning developing research in this area. It's really not geared only to one or the other. It's a means of policy making on a global level. Actually, we are in close discussions in one or the other way on these topics of quality of life, human development. We see some overlaps, we see some major differences as well. It is geared towards research. And it is as well something you can apply, actually, it had been done in different ways, in different areas, meaning social services. I worked on a project, European Union project, where we looked at the applicability of this approach when it comes to the design of social services. There's something going on actually in the Netherlands, in The Hague, to develop social quality as policy on a local level. So you find different areas there, global social policy, national social policy. If people take it on board in their campaign for the next elections, if they are serious about it, great. But they should do it in a serious way, not just take it as a nice Sunday speech. And it is something where you can make concrete policies. as well in different sectors, I think. If you look at health, you can kind of apply it there. You have to adapt it, but you have to conceptual framework.